Sarah Mitchell stood at the entrance of Murphy's Auto Repair, watching a man work beneath the hood of an old pickup truck. His name was Daniel Reed, though she didn't know that yet. All she could see was the careful way his hands moved over the engine, treating each part with respect, like it mattered. He was perhaps 40, with light brown hair touched by the golden afternoon sun. His gray t-shirt and canvas overalls were stained with honest work. There was something solid about him, something real. Sarah took a breath and stepped inside. "Excuse me," she said softly. Daniel looked up, wiping his hands on a red shop cloth. His blue eyes were kind, with fine lines at the corners that spoke of frequent smiles. "Yes, ma'am? Your car giving you trouble?" Sarah glanced at her sensible sedan parked outside. It ran perfectly fine. She'd driven past 3 closer repair shops to get here. "Actually," she began, then paused. How did one ask this? "I have an unusual request." Daniel set down his wrench and gave her his full attention. That alone surprised her. In her world, people rarely stopped moving long enough to truly listen. "I need someone to accompany me to a weekend event," Sarah continued. "It's a business conference, nothing complicated. Just someone to be there with me." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel's expression didn't change to judgment or confusion. He simply considered her, the way he might consider an engine problem that needed understanding before fixing. "You don't know me," he said gently. It was an observation, not a refusal. "No," Sarah admitted, "but I've driven past this shop 3 times this month. I've watched how you work, how you treat people when they come in worried about their cars. You're patient, you're kind. That matters more than knowing someone's favorite color." Daniel smiled then, a slow, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "When's this conference?" he asked. "This weekend, Friday evening through Sunday afternoon. I'll handle all the expenses, of course. And I promise, it's nothing improper. Separate rooms. It's just—" She hesitated. "Sometimes it's easier to face certain things with someone beside you." There was something in the way she said it that made Daniel understand. This wasn't about romance or pretense. This was about not wanting to be alone. "All right," he said. "I'll do it." Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. "Really? Really? Life's taught me that sometimes helping someone is its own reason. Don't need to understand everything about why." They exchanged phone numbers. Sarah told him the hotel name, the dress code, business casual, nothing fancy. Daniel nodded, already mentally checking his closet. As Sarah drove away, Daniel returned to his work, wondering what story brought a woman with such sadness in her eyes to a mechanic's shop, looking for company. Friday arrived wrapped in the colors of late autumn. Daniel met Sarah in the hotel lobby, wearing pressed khakis and a navy blazer. He'd gotten a haircut. Sarah noticed, and it touched her. She wore a simple ivory blouse and burgundy skirt, her blonde hair falling in soft waves past her shoulders. There was an elegance to her that seemed effortless, though Daniel sensed it might be armor. "You look nice," he said, and meant it in the uncomplicated way of someone who sees another person trying their best. "So do you," Sarah replied. "Thank you for coming, Daniel. I know this is strange." "Strange isn't always bad," he said. "Just different." They walked into the conference together. The event was held in a large banquet hall, filled with people in expensive suits carrying expensive drinks. Daniel felt out of place immediately, but Sarah's presence beside him was calming. She didn't rush him or hover. She just was there. They found seats near the back. A speaker droned on about market projections and quarterly growth. Daniel listened politely, understanding perhaps half of it, but that didn't seem to matter. During the break, Sarah introduced him simply. "This is Daniel. He's with me." No one questioned it. Though Daniel noticed something odd, the way people looked at Sarah. There was deference there, respect mixed with something like caution. "Coffee?" he offered. "Please," Sarah said gratefully. Daniel navigated the refreshment table and returned with 2 cups. Black, right? He asked, remembering what she'd ordered at the diner where they'd met earlier to coordinate. Sarah smiled. You remembered. Small things matter, Daniel said. My grandmother used to say that. The big gestures are easy. It's the small, quiet things that show you're paying attention. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the crowd swirl around them. Can I ask you something? Daniel said eventually. You don't have to answer. Go ahead. Why me? Really? Sarah looked into her coffee, gathering her thoughts. 3 months ago, my husband passed away, she said quietly. Heart attack. He was 52. We'd built a life together, a business, everything. And then, he was gone. Daniel didn't say anything. He just listened, his presence steady. Everyone at these conferences knew us as a couple, Sarah continued. Coming here alone, the first time. I couldn't do it. I know that probably sounds weak. It sounds human, Daniel said gently. Grief isn't weak. It's love with nowhere to go. Sarah looked at him then, really looked at him. That's beautiful. Did your grandmother say that too? No, Daniel admitted. I lost my wife 6 years ago. Cancer. I understand what it's like when the world expects you to just keep going, but part of you is still standing in the hospital room, holding her hand. They sat with that truth between them. 2 people who understood that some losses never fully heal. They just become part of who you are. The evening session ended, and they walked through the hotel garden. The air was cool, touched with the promise of winter. Garden lights cast soft shadows on the path. Thank you, Sarah said, for being honest with me. About your wife. Margaret, Daniel said. Her name was Margaret. She loved gardens like this, used to drag me to botanical gardens every spring. He smiled at the memory. I pretended to complain, but I loved watching her face light up over a new bloom. What was she like? Patient. Funny. She saw good in people even when they didn't deserve it. She would have liked you. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. My husband, Robert, he was driven, ambitious. Sometimes too much so, but he loved fiercely. When he was all in. She paused. I miss that. Having someone who was all in. They reached a bench and sat, watching the fountain play in the moonlight. Can I tell you something? Sarah asked. Something I haven't told anyone? Of course. Robert and I, we built a company together. Started in our garage 28 years ago. Tech components, nothing glamorous. But it grew and grew. And somewhere in all that growth, they were walking back to their rooms when he said, Sarah, what do you do? For work, I mean. She stopped, and for a moment, something like fear crossed her face. Does it matter? She asked softly. No, Daniel said honestly. I'm just curious who my friend is. Sarah smiled, relieved by his answer. Mitchell Chen Technologies, she said. Robert and I founded it. After he died, I became sole CEO, Daniel blinked. He'd heard of Mitchell Chen. Everyone had. They were one of the largest tech manufacturers in the country. You're a millionaire, he said slowly. Many times over, I'm guessing. Does that change things? Sarah asked, and he could hear the vulnerability there. Daniel thought about it honestly. You know what I see? He said finally. I see a woman who lost someone she loved, who was brave enough to ask a stranger for help because she needed not to be alone. The money? He shrugged. That's just numbers in an account. It doesn't tell me who you are. Sarah's eyes welled up. Most people, when they find out... I'm not most people, Daniel said gently. I'm a mechanic who fixes engines and lives in a 2-bedroom house Margaret and I bought 30 years ago. I'm not impressed by money. I'm impressed by character. And Sarah, you have that in spades. That evening, they skipped the formal dinner. Instead, they found a small diner off the main road, the kind with vinyl booths and laminated menus. They ate burgers and shared a slice of apple pie and talked about everything and nothing. What made you become a mechanic? Sarah asked. My dad, Daniel said. He taught me that everything that's broken can be fixed if you're patient enough. Not always back to how it was, but fixed enough to keep running. I like that philosophy. Still do. Everything can be fixed, Sarah repeated softly. Even hearts? Daniel met her gaze across the table. Not fixed back to before, he said, but healed enough to keep beating, to keep feeling, to keep loving, in whatever new way makes sense. They drove back to the hotel in comfortable silence, the radio playing softly between them. Sunday morning came too quickly. The final session was brief, just closing remarks and networking. Sarah handled it with grace, Daniel by her side, offering his steady presence. As they packed their cars afterward, Daniel felt a strange reluctance to say goodbye. "Sarah," he said, "this weekend," it meant something to me too. "Just so you know," she turned to him, her eyes bright. "It did?" "Yeah, I've been stuck, I guess. Going through motions. Work, home, sleep, repeat. This weekend reminded me that there's more. That connecting with people, even in unusual ways, that's what makes life worth living." Sarah stepped forward and hugged him. It wasn't romantic. It was the embrace of two souls who'd found unexpected comfort in each other. "Can we stay in touch?" she asked. "Real friends, not just weekend pretend?" "I'd like that," Daniel said. "I'd like that a lot." They exchanged real contact information, made plans for coffee the following week, and promised to check in. As Daniel drove home, he thought about Margaret, about how she'd always told him that life would surprise him if he let it. That closing himself off wasn't honoring her memory. It was wasting the life she'd fought so hard to stay in. Maybe she was right. Sarah, driving in the opposite direction, felt lighter than she had in months. The conference was behind her. She'd survived it. No, more than survived. She'd found a genuine connection, something real in a world that often felt performative. Her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Made it home. Thanks again for a memorable weekend. Looking forward to that coffee." She smiled, typing back. "Thank you for saying yes. See you next week, friend." And somehow that simple word, friend, felt like a beginning, not a romantic one necessarily. Just the beginning of two people, each carrying their losses, choosing to walk forward together sometimes, knowing that the weight is always lighter when shared. In a world that often felt too fast, too harsh, too complicated, they'd found something simple: kindness, understanding, the gift of being seen, truly seen by another person. And in the quiet of their separate homes that Sunday night, both Daniel and Sarah felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, not the dramatic, life-changing kind. Just the gentle, persistent hope that tomorrow would come, and maybe it would bring another small moment of connection, another conversation, another shared cup of coffee, and that, they both realized, was enough. That was more than enough. It was everything.